In every family there are unspoken truths. Secrets carefully wrapped in silence, quietly influencing every word, every glance, every decision. This is a story of grief, betrayal, and the quiet strength of love that outlives even death. A man's final act of love sets off a ripple through the people he leaves behind, challenging their loyalties, revealing hidden motives, and forcing them to choose between truth and illusion. What you're about to hear is not just a tale of inheritance. It is a legacy of the soul. If you're enjoying this story, please like and drop a comment telling us which city you're listening from. For those who click subscribe, I pray that God grants you health, heals every illness in your body, blesses you with abundant wealth, and surrounds your home with peace. Don't forget to share this channel with someone who loves good storytelling. I invite you not just to watch but to listen. Let the visuals be background. Nothing you see on screen is tied to the story. Close your eyes, relax, and imagine every word. Let the pictures unfold in your mind. The sky was gray, the kind of gray that seems to swallow sound and feeling. The wind moved slowly through the cemetery trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and fresh roses. People dressed in black surrounded the grave of Michael Walker, their heads bowed, their faces somber. His wife, Linda Walker, stood beside the coffin with her hands clenched tightly in front of her. Her lips trembled, but no tears fell, not yet. She wasn't ready to cry. Not in front of them. Then it happened. From across the mourners, a voice pierced the silence. "Fake tears won't bring him back," said Vanessa. Her voice was sharp, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You already moved on before he even died." The words hit like thunder. Gasps rose from the crowd. Some looked away. Others stared. Linda's eyes met Vanessa's. Her daughter-in-law stood tall, unbothered, her expression locked in anger. And beside her, Daniel, Linda's son, Vanessa's husband, said nothing. Not a word. His silence was louder than Vanessa's accusations. Linda turned to him, silently pleading for something. A defense. A denial. Anything. But Daniel looked down, avoiding her gaze. The weight of humiliation bore down on Linda's shoulders. The funeral became a theater of shame. What was supposed to be the final goodbye to her husband turned into a stage for betrayal. She tried to breathe, but the air was thick. Vanessa stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough for Linda to hear. "We all know you and Michael were already done. Don't pretend you're the grieving widow." Linda's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to cry. But she stood still, frozen in grief and shock. Around her, murmurs buzzed like flies. And Michael's coffin waited silently below. Daniel finally spoke, but only to his son, Noah, tugging on his tiny hand to keep him still. He never looked at his mother. The ceremony ended quickly after that. People left with glances of pity and confusion. No one dared to approach Linda. Not after what they had witnessed. She stood alone by the grave as the workers began to lower the casket. And just like that, the man who had been her partner, her anchor, her strength, was taken by the ground. But what hurt more than losing Michael was losing her son in the same moment. Linda did not cry that day. Not because she had no tears, but because she had to survive something far colder than death. Betrayal. 3 days after the funeral, Linda walked into the office of Gregory Cole, the family's longtime attorney. The room smelled of old books and fresh coffee. Shelves lined with leather-bound volumes stared down at her like silent witnesses. She sat quietly, her fingers tracing the edge of her purse. She didn't know what to expect, but she felt the weight of something coming. Rachel arrived first. Her eyes were tired but kind, her voice soft as she greeted her mother. Then came Daniel, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. He didn't speak to Linda. Vanessa was nowhere in sight. Gregory entered, holding a thick envelope. "Thank you all for coming," he said, sitting behind his desk. "As per Michael's wishes, his final will is to be read today in full, with all immediate family present." Linda felt her throat tighten. The room felt colder. Gregory cleared his throat. "To my wife, Linda Walker, the woman who stood by me through joy and illness, I leave the house we shared, all furnishings within it, and a monthly allowance to be paid from my estate until her final days. My only request is that she never doubts how deeply she was loved. Linda's breath caught. Her lips trembled. Gregory continued. To my daughter, Rachel Walker, whose mind and heart have always been her greatest gifts, I leave the sum of $300,000 in my complete library collection. May these books guide you the way they once guided me. Rachel blinked, stunned. Her hand touched Linda's. To my son Daniel Walker, Gregory read, pausing slightly, I leave the amount of $10,000. I hope it helps you find your way back to truth. Daniel shifted in his seat. He looked up, confused. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Linda didn't move. She didn't look at him. And to my grandson Noah Walker, Gregory said, I establish a trust in the amount of $250,000. This trust will be administered by Linda Walker and myself. It is to be used solely for his education and well-being. Under no circumstance may Vanessa Walker access these funds. Daniel's head snapped toward Gregory. What? He muttered. Gregory remained steady. Michael was clear. Vanessa is excluded from any control or benefit over Noah's trust. Explicitly. The room was silent. Rachel exhaled slowly. Daniel looked dazed. Gregory continued. The remainder of the estate, including investment portfolios, is to be donated to the Sarah Grace Foundation, a charity founded in memory of Michael and Linda's first daughter, Sarah, who passed from leukemia at the age of 5. It was Michael's deepest wish to fund pediatric cancer research in her name. Linda closed her eyes. She remembered Sarah's laugh, the way her tiny arms wrapped around her neck. She remembered the hospital nights and Michael reading bedtime stories to an empty room long after Sarah was gone. Rachel wept quietly beside her. Daniel stood. His voice cracked. This can't be right. Just 10,000? And you're telling me my wife gets nothing? Gregory looked at him firmly. That is correct. Michael documented his wishes in great detail. Daniel's face turned red. He must have been manipulated. My father wouldn't do that. Gregory didn't flinch. Michael was of sound mind, and more prepared than anyone I've ever met. Daniel stormed out of the room, leaving the door swinging behind him. Rachel wiped her cheeks and took Linda's hand. He knew what he was doing, Mom. Dad was protecting us. Linda said nothing. But deep inside she knew this was only the beginning. It didn't take long for Vanessa to strike. That night, a storm rolled across the city, and with every clap of thunder, Linda's phone buzzed with notifications. Messages, texts, mentions. Her name was suddenly everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, even local gossip forums. Screenshots of the will, twisted captions, cruel accusations. She manipulated a dying man for money. She faked her grief and stole from his son. She's cutting Noah off from his real mother. Each post more venomous than the last. Rachel came rushing into Linda's house the next morning, her face pale. Mom, do not go online. Vanessa's posted everything. She's turning this into a war. Linda, sitting by the kitchen window, didn't even flinch. She simply stirred her tea. Let her, she said softly. Rachel frowned. Are you okay? Linda nodded. Your father planned for this. Rachel pulled out her phone. She's threatening to sue. Says she's got a lawyer and she's challenging the will. Linda smiled faintly, the kind of smile forged by pain. Gregory has something for that too. Later that day, Linda visited Gregory Cole's office once again. The attorney looked exhausted but prepared. From his desk drawer he pulled out a sealed folder marked in Michael's handwriting. Gregory opened it slowly. Your husband wasn't just cautious, Linda. He was precise. He knew Vanessa might react this way. Inside were documents. Dozens. Receipts, bank statements, wire transfers. Gregory explained. Michael gave over $300,000 to Daniel over the last 6 years. Quietly. He paid off their mortgage. Covered their debts. Bought them a second car. Paid for private schooling for Noah. He placed the folder gently on the desk. If Vanessa takes this to court, all of this becomes public record. She'll have to explain how they used the money. She'll also have to answer for the credit cards in her name with charges linked to casino accounts and luxury shops. Linda's hands rested still in her lap. Gregory looked her in the eye. Michael kept notes. Everything. She'd be tearing down her own house if she files that suit. That evening, as the online attacks worsened, Linda remained calm. She sat by the fireplace, staring into the orange flicker. Rachel sat beside her, reading the posts in disbelief. "Why doesn't Daniel stop her?" Rachel asked. Linda didn't answer immediately. Instead, she whispered, "Because he's still in love with a version of her that never existed." The following morning, a courier arrived at Linda's house. A thick envelope, no return address. Linda opened it and immediately recognized Vanessa's handwriting. It was a letter. 5 pages of rage. Accusations. Threats. Promises of legal revenge. But at the very bottom, scribbled in uneven ink, was a single sentence that made Linda stop. "You always thought you were better than me. We'll see who survives this." Rachel leaned over, reading the line. "She's unraveling." Linda folded the letter carefully. "No, dear," she said. "She's starting to realize the mask is slipping." Vanessa had declared war. But Michael had already built the fortress. 3 days after Vanessa's online storm began, Daniel showed up at his mother's doorstep. It was early evening. The sky was darkening and a light rain tapped against the windows. Linda opened the door slowly, finding her son standing there, soaked, tired, and holding nothing but a confused expression. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice low. She stepped aside without a word. Daniel sat at the edge of the living room couch, elbows on his knees, fingers locked together like a man about to confess. Linda brought him a warm towel. He didn't touch it. "I don't know what to believe," he said quietly. Linda sat across from him. Her eyes didn't accuse him. They didn't comfort him either. "She says you manipulated Dad. That you twisted everything while he was sick. That Rachel helped." Linda didn't respond. Daniel's voice trembled. "Why would he leave me almost nothing?" Silence. "And why would he trust you with Noah's money? Not me. Not his own son." Linda reached into a drawer beside her and pulled out a sealed envelope. "This is for you," she said. "Your father asked me to give it to you when the time came." Daniel hesitated, then took the envelope. His name was handwritten across the front in a firm, familiar scrawl. Daniel. He opened it. Inside was a letter. A few pages written carefully. Daniel began to read, and the room fell into quiet.
3 days after Vanessa's online storm began, Daniel showed up at his mother's doorstep. It was early evening. The sky was darkening, and a light rain tapped against the windows. Linda opened the door slowly, finding her son standing there, soaked, tired, and holding nothing but a confused expression. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice low. She stepped aside without a word. Daniel sat at the edge of the living room couch, elbows on his knees, fingers locked together like a man about to confess. Linda brought him a warm towel. He didn't touch it. "I don't know what to believe," he said quietly. Linda sat across from him. Her eyes didn't accuse him. They didn't comfort him either. "She says you manipulated Dad, that you twisted everything while he was sick, that Rachel helped." Linda didn't respond. Daniel's voice trembled. "Why would he leave me almost nothing?" Silence. "And why would he trust you with Noah's money? Not me. Not his own son." Linda reached into a drawer beside her and pulled out a sealed envelope. "This is for you," she said. "Your father asked me to give it to you when the time came." Daniel hesitated, then took the envelope. His name was handwritten across the front in a firm, familiar scrawl. Daniel. He opened it. Inside was a letter, a few pages written carefully. Daniel began to read, and the room fell into quiet.
Daniel stared at the letter. His hands were shaking. Linda stood and handed him a second folder. Inside were printed screenshots, financial reports, and emails. One email stood out immediately. Vanessa had written to a lawyer, asking about the quickest way to file for divorce after inheritance was received. Daniel closed the folder, face pale. "She said she was loyal," he muttered. "She cried every night while Dad was sick." "She cried," Linda said softly, "for the money she thought she'd lose." The rain outside grew heavier. Daniel sat in silence for a long time. When he finally spoke again, his voice was different, calmer but colder. "She used me." Linda didn't nod. She didn't say, "I told you so." She simply reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "You still have time to do the right thing," she whispered. Daniel looked at the photo on the wall. His father holding Noah on his shoulders, both smiling under a summer sun. "I have to protect him," Daniel said. His voice was steady now, clear, as if something inside him had finally woken up. Linda stood. "Then you know what you have to do." The next morning, Daniel stood in front of the mirror in his old childhood room. He had stayed the night at Linda's house without a word to Vanessa. His phone buzzed with missed calls and frantic messages, but he ignored them all. He looked at himself. For the first time in years, he didn't recognize the man in the reflection. Tired, worn, and ashamed. But behind those eyes was something else now. Determination. Downstairs, Linda was already seated with Gregory Cole. The lawyer opened a thick binder labeled Custody Contingency Folder. Michael's name was scribbled at the bottom corner. "He prepared all of this?" Daniel asked. Gregory nodded. "Your father knew what could happen. He wanted to make sure we had a strong foundation to protect Noah." Daniel flipped through the documents. There were screenshots of Vanessa's messages complaining about Noah being a burden. A private investigator's report describing nights she left him alone to attend late poker games. Bank statements showing she had spent thousands of dollars from Noah's college fund on vacations with her friends. Daniel's heart broke with every page. His son had been just another pawn to her. Gregory pointed to the final tab in the folder. "This is the medical record request. Your father had begun compiling statements from Noah's therapist, indicating stress, confusion, and emotional distance from Vanessa." Daniel looked up, eyes hardening. "We filed today." By the afternoon, the petition for full custody had been submitted. A temporary protective order was also issued to prevent any sudden travel or financial movement related to Noah. Vanessa would be served within 24 hours. But Vanessa was faster than they expected. That evening, she showed up at Linda's house, pounding on the door like a storm. Daniel answered it. She was wild. Her eyes bloodshot, hair pulled back in a mess, phone in one hand recording everything. "You think you can take him from me?" she screamed. "You're choosing her over your own wife? You chose yourself over our son," Daniel said, his voice cold. Vanessa's scream echoed through the neighborhood. "You're going to regret this. I'll destroy you in court. I'll make sure Noah never forgives you." Behind Daniel, Linda stepped into view. Calm as ever. "This house is private property, Vanessa," she said. "Leave before I call the police." Vanessa hesitated. She looked at Daniel one last time. "You were nothing until I fixed you," she hissed. "And now you think you're strong without me?" Daniel stepped forward. "I don't think. I know." She backed away slowly into the night. Inside, Daniel slumped against the wall. His heart was racing, his hands shaking. "I can't believe I ever trusted her." Linda placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're not the first man to be blinded by charm. But not many find the courage to see again." Over the next week, the legal battle began. Vanessa filed her own motions, trying to discredit Daniel's stability, accusing Linda of manipulation, even suggesting that Michael's will was forged. But every move she made triggered another piece of Michael's well-prepared puzzle. For every claim she brought, Gregory had a document to refute it. For every accusation, a time-stamped video, a report, a bank log. And while Vanessa crumbled under pressure, Daniel grew stronger. He spent more time with Noah, took him to school, made breakfast, sat by his bed at night and read stories, answering every question the boy had with honesty and patience. Noah had questions. "Why isn't Mommy home?" Daniel didn't lie. "Mommy and I are trying to figure out how to make things better. But I promise, I'll always be here." One night, after tucking Noah in, Daniel sat outside with Linda on the porch. He looked up at the stars. "I never knew Dad had planned this far ahead." Linda smiled. "Your father wasn't just a good man. He was a careful one. Especially when it came to you." Daniel's voice cracked. "I let him down." "No," Linda said softly. "You just needed time to remember who you are." The wind picked up. The leaves rustled. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt peace, brief but real. He knew the storm wasn't over. But he was no longer hiding from it. He was walking straight into it, with his son's future in his hands. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and tension. Sunlight poured in through high windows, illuminating dust particles dancing in the still air. Daniel sat at the plaintiff's table in a navy suit, hands folded tightly in front of him. On his left sat Gregory Cole, calm and precise. Behind him, Linda watched silently, her eyes never leaving her son. Across the aisle, Vanessa leaned into her attorney, whispering sharply. She wore a sleek black dress and a cold expression, but the panic in her eyes betrayed her. The judge entered and everyone rose. With a firm nod, the session began. Daniel took the stand first. He spoke clearly about the emotional environment in their home, his growing awareness of Vanessa's detachment from their child, and the financial inconsistencies he'd only recently discovered. His voice cracked once, when he described Noah crying at night, asking why his mother didn't say goodnight anymore. Vanessa's attorney countered with accusations. Manipulation by Linda, forged documents, emotional instability from grief. But Gregory handled it all with methodical precision, laying down facts like dominoes, one after another. Then came the witness list. Rachel took the stand to describe Vanessa's coldness during Michael's final days. Noah's preschool teacher testified about the child's recent behavioral shifts, anxious clinging, flinching when certain tones were raised. Finally, the private investigator recounted sightings of Vanessa gambling late at night, leaving Noah at home or with unfamiliar babysitters. But the most damning moment came when Gregory introduced an audio recording, Vanessa, mid-conversation with a friend, saying, "As soon as the money's in, I'm gone. Daniel can have the kid. I just want what's mine." Gasps echoed through the room. Vanessa's face drained of color. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge had heard enough. In the final session, Vanessa herself was called to the stand. Her answers were defensive, scattered. She contradicted herself. When pressed about her financial choices, she became hostile, accusing everyone, including the judge, of bias. It was the last nail in the coffin. The judge recessed for deliberation. The room exhaled. An hour later, the court reconvened. Everyone stood as the judge returned with the final ruling. In the matter of custody regarding minor Noah Walker, the court finds overwhelming evidence of emotional neglect, financial misuse, and instability from the respondent, Vanessa Walker. Full legal and physical custody is hereby granted to the petitioner, Daniel Walker. Vanessa gasped. A sharp, wounded sound escaped her lips. The judge continued. Visitation rights are restricted to supervised sessions, not exceeding 2 hours bi-weekly, pending future behavioral review. Furthermore, the court requests that the respondent vacate the current residence shared with the child within 7 days. Vanessa's knees buckled. Her lawyer steadied her, but she pushed him away. "This is a joke," she shouted. "They poisoned you against me." She turned to Daniel, pointing. "You think this is over? I will never forgive you." Daniel stood tall, saying nothing. For the first time, he didn't flinch at her rage. He held his head high, knowing the storm had passed and he had walked through it. As court adjourned, Noah's voice echoed in Daniel's memory. "Will you always be there, Daddy?" "Yes. From now on, always." Outside, reporters swarmed the steps, but Daniel ignored them. He held the door open for his mother, who joined him with quiet grace. Linda looked at him. "You did it." "No," Daniel said softly. "We did." They walked down the courthouse steps side by side. Behind them, Vanessa stood frozen, her empire of illusions crumbling into silence. The seasons had come and gone, and with them the pain began to fade like the colors of autumn leaves. Daniel now lived in a modest 2-bedroom home just 5 blocks from Linda's place. It wasn't large, but it was warm, full of laughter, music, and the smell of fresh-baked cookies Noah liked to help make on weekends. Noah was thriving. He'd grown taller, more confident, and was no longer afraid to speak up in class. His drawings were brighter now, full of sunshine and trees and stick figures holding hands. Sometimes he drew one with 3 people, me, Daddy, and Grandma, he would say proudly. Linda became a daily presence. She picked Noah up from school when Daniel worked late. She helped him with homework, told stories from Daniel's childhood, and taught him how to plant tomatoes in the garden out back. On rainy nights, they would all sit together on the couch. Noah snuggled between them, watching old animated films as popcorn spilled over the cushions. It was messy, imperfect, but it felt like home. Rachel visited often too. He brought books, crafts, and hugs. Her bond with Linda, once casual, deepened. They laughed more easily now, sharing wine on the porch after Noah had gone to bed, remembering Michael not with sorrow but with love. "Dad would have liked this," Rachel said one night, the breeze playing with her scarf. Linda nodded. "He always wanted peace more than anything. For us. For the children." Daniel was there too, sipping tea. "I think we're finally giving that to him." There were still scars. Daniel sometimes woke from dreams filled with arguments, courtroom scenes, Vanessa's voice echoing threats. But the weight of guilt had lifted. He'd done what he needed to do, not only for Noah but for himself. As for Vanessa, word spread she had moved to another city. She tried contacting Noah a few times, but under strict court supervision she rarely followed through. The scheduled visits dwindled, then stopped altogether. Linda watched her son grow into a stronger man, more present, more patient. There was a depth in his eyes now, a quiet resilience that hadn't been there before. "You've changed," she told him one evening. Daniel chuckled. "Life will do that to you." "No," she said gently. "You've healed." He looked at her, then glanced at Noah playing with toy dinosaurs in the yard. "Not just me." Linda smiled. Healing wasn't loud. It wasn't a grand event. It was a soft, steady return, like light creeping back into a dim room. And in that light they found each other again. Mother and son. Father and child. Family. One Sunday morning, Daniel took Noah to visit Michael's grave. The boy brought a paper airplane he'd folded himself. "He always wanted to fly," Noah said, placing it gently on the headstone. Daniel put a hand on his son's shoulder. "He's flying, buddy. Just from a different sky." They stood together in silence, the wind brushing past them. Not everything had been fixed. Not every tear had dried. But they had each other. And that was enough. It was a rainy Tuesday when Daniel opened the last of the sealed boxes from his father's study. The cardboard was worn and dust had gathered in the corners. He had meant to go through it months ago, but grief has a strange way of putting certain things on pause. Noah was asleep in his room and Linda was reading by the fireplace. The house was quiet. Inside the box, between folders of medical records and old letters, Daniel found a leather-bound journal. The cover was scuffed, the pages slightly curled at the edges. It smelled of ink, cedar, and time. It was Michael's handwriting. The first few pages were filled with entries from years ago. Thoughts about work, fatherhood, Sunday afternoons in the garden. Then the tone changed. The entries grew more introspective, more philosophical. Michael had started writing again after his cancer diagnosis. His words were sharp yet soft. Honest. Full of a man's thoughts as he faced the inevitable. Daniel read for hours. "I see more clearly now than I ever did. Life is not about what you build with your hands, but what you leave in their hearts. Linda has carried our family longer than anyone will ever know. I only hope I've given her enough to carry on without me. Rachel is fire and grace. Daniel is thunder waiting for calm. I worry for him." Then on the final page, a sentence underlined in blue ink. "True legacy is not what you leave in the bank. It's what you leave in the hearts of those you love." Daniel closed the journal, tears slipping down his cheeks. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was gratitude. For the first time he truly understood his father. He walked to the fireplace where Linda still sat and gently placed the journal in her lap. "I think you should read this," he whispered. She glanced at the cover, then back at him. Her smile was small but full of meaning. "Thank you, Daniel." Later that week, Daniel shared the quote with Rachel. They agreed to engrave it on a plaque outside the Children's Cancer Foundation, now bearing Michael's name. The foundation had grown, supported by donations, run by a compassionate board, and visited often by families in need of hope. Noah painted a mural in the hallway of the center. A big tree with roots and bright green leaves. "That's Grandpa's tree," he said. "It's still growing." Time moved on gently. The past was not forgotten, but it no longer held them captive. Daniel continued to raise Noah with patience and love. Linda grew older with grace, surrounded by laughter, stories, and the family she had protected so fiercely. Rachel became a board member at the foundation and never missed a birthday or holiday. And Michael, though gone, was never truly absent. His voice lived on in the lessons he left. His presence lingered in every act of kindness, every hard conversation made with love, every time someone chose truth over comfort. And his legacy was alive. Not in numbers, not in property, not in things, but in the healing of wounds, in the strength of those who remained, and in the quiet, unwavering power of love.